In a lot of situations, I prefer to know who is modifying a particular table, or who is reading from this table, who is writing to this table, who is updating a particular column value, or who is firing this query which takes more than, I don't know, 1 second, right? In such scenarios, one feature of default Magento is particularly useful, which is query logging. The command is very simple: php bin magento dev query log enable, right? And if you see, it starts logging the queries in this particular file, which is located at var debug db.log. You can see the default log looks really ugly because it prints a lot of things: arguments, file name, object hashes, right? And it's not particularly readable, and if you were to leave this on for even half an hour on a production server, it would quickly grow up to a couple of GBs depending on your traffic, right? So how do we beautify this? The main reason to beautify this is how can this be more readable so that you can make sense out of this. For example, if you carefully try to read this log, you will understand that, hey, this query was fired by some import export, and the reverse call stack, if you look at it, it was fired by local resolver, right? And you can see the whole call stack. But still, this is difficult. How do we beautify this? Now, to beautify this, we need a couple of things. We need to get rid of these object hashes. Then we don't need these file names, because most of the times when you know the class name and the class name follows PSR4 standard, you can figure it out, right, by just looking at the class name. You can navigate to that particular directory, and these arguments in most cases are not useful to log. In most cases, again, there are cases when you would want to use them. So let's see how to beautify them. Now, I've already written a post on this. What Magento does internally to log the trace of a query, the backtrace of the query, is it uses this particular class, Magento framework debug, and the function is backtrace, right? In fact, I use this function a lot when I want to print backtrace at a particular function. So this is the function that we are going to modify. First thing to do is to modify this core PHP function, which is debug underscore backtrace. This is a PHP function. What we want to do is we want to pass some extra arguments here to let the function know that we don't want to log arguments and object hashes, right? So to do that, we can simply do this, and I've explained this in much detail here, but these are the two arguments that we need. You can see this just creates a flag by using two binary constants, or bitmap, bit mask is what you could say. Now we'll just copy this and we modify the arguments here. Simple. This will turn off the object hash, and this will ignore the argument, as you can see by the constant name. The second thing that we saw, which is useless, is this file name. I really don't need this in many cases. Of course, that also means that it will turn off the file path logged for PHTML files, but in most cases it's unnecessary, right? So what we are going to do here is simply go here in the trace function where the beautification happens, and here what I want to do is on this line number 109, I would like to unset this from the array that is obtained. Unset, because there is no particular flag to turn off the file path, so we simply unset it. In a PHP application where you don't have PSR4 logging mechanisms, then it's important to log the file path, but since here we follow the PSR4 standards, we don't need it. Once you do this, and whichever next requests come, you will see that the logs start looking like this, much more sorted. If you can see, This is the query. This is the long query which is fired by an indexer. You can see this, right? And this query took around 273 milliseconds, and this was fired by this particular class. I can see that by looking at the stack trace. Smile, Elasticsearch, catalog, model, resource model, blah 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 blah, get attributes raw data, right? And then this was called by load attribute raw data, which was called by add attribute data. And when I want to debug, I can just look at the source code of these 4 classes to understand how this query is formed, what are the different parameters which affect this particular query's build mechanism, right? And you can see this comes pretty handy when you want to understand indexers, or when you want to understand what are all the queries that a particular request is firing on the database. But that's about it. This is pretty compared to this, and you can see all these details here in this post. Yeah, thank you.